How did one man, without an army, stop one of the most feared warlords in history from burning Rome to the ground? No swords, no soldiers, just faith and words. Today, on the Pope Diaries, we take you deep into the life of Pope Leo I, the bishop who faced the scourge of God, Attila the Hun, and made him turn back. But this is not just a story about diplomacy. It's a story of faith in a time of fear, courage in a time of collapse, and one man's voice that echoed louder than the weapons of war. If you're new here, subscribe now for powerful journeys into the lives of history's most legendary popes. And to all our returning subscribers, thank you for your unwavering support. You are the soul of this channel. Let's begin. Part 1. Who was Attila the Hun? To understand Pope Leo's bravery, you must first know the man he stood against. Attila the Hun was no ordinary invader. Born around 406 AD, Attila was the ruler of the Huns, a nomadic tribe from Central Asia that struck terror into the heart of the Roman Empire. Where Attila went, cities burned, entire populations fled before his armies even arrived. They called him the Scourge of God. His goal: power, domination, and tribute. He believed Rome owed him, and he was determined to take it, either by gold or by blood. By the mid-5th century, Attila had already devastated large parts of the Eastern Roman Empire. He pushed deep into the Balkans, extorted wealth from Constantinople, and forced the emperor to pay massive annual tributes just to keep peace. But peace was never enough for Attila. In 451, he turned his eyes to the west, tearing through Gaul, modern-day France. But after a fierce battle at Chalons, he was repelled. Angry and humiliated, he set his sights on Italy. This was not just revenge, it was a statement. Rome, once the mighty empire, was now weak, and Attila wanted to be the one to deal the final blow. Part 2. The Roman Empire in decline. By the time Attila crossed into Italy in 452 AD, the Western Roman Empire was falling apart. The emperor, Valentinian III, was barely a shadow of the old Caesars. Civil wars, corrupt politics, and foreign invasions had stripped Rome of its former glory. There were no strong armies left to protect the city. And that's where Pope Leo comes in. Part 3. The early life of Leo. Leo was born around 400 AD, possibly in Tuscany, during the empire's slow decline. From a young age, Leo was different. He was known for his intellect, his eloquence, and his deep conviction. Unlike others who chased political careers or military fame, Leo dedicated himself to the church. He served as a deacon under Pope Celestine I, where he quickly became a key advisor and diplomat. When Pope Sixtus III died in 440 AD, Leo was away on a mission, but his reputation was so strong that he was elected pope in his absence. Part 4. The rise of a warrior pope. Leo's papacy wasn't just about sermons and sacraments. He stepped into a church that was under threat, not just from outside enemies like Attila, but from within. There were fierce theological debates. Heresies like Pelagianism, Nestorianism, and Monophysitism were dividing the Christian world. Leo didn't shy away. He wrote letters, gave sermons, and held councils to defend orthodox teaching. But his greatest theological triumph came in 451 AD, at the Council of Chalcedon. There, his famous letter, the Tome of Leo, declared that Christ is both fully God and fully man, in one person. It was so clear, so powerful, that the bishop said, "Peter has spoken through the mouth of Leo." He was no longer just a bishop. He was becoming a voice of authority across the entire Christian world. But a new test was coming. Part 5. Attila's invasion of Italy. In 452 AD, Attila and his brutal forces crossed the Alps into Italy. They ravaged cities. They burned Aquileia to the ground. Padua, Verona, and Milan were devastated. Rome was the next target. Panic spread. People fled. The emperor was powerless. So who stood up? Pope Leo. He volunteered to meet Attila face to face. With no weapons, no soldiers, only faith. It was a death mission by all human standards. But Leo believed words, reason, and God's will could do what swords could not. Part 6. The historic encounter. Pope Leo rode out to meet Attila at the banks of the Mincio River, near Mantua. With him were two envoys, Arvinus and Trigetius, but Leo was the central figure. What exactly happened at that meeting? History gives us only fragments. Some say Leo promised gold and negotiations. Others say Attila saw a vision of saints, Peter and Paul standing behind Leo with drawn swords, warning him. Attila, the man who had burned cities and slaughtered thousands, suddenly turned around and left. He spared Rome. Why? Maybe it was politics. Maybe it was fear of disease in Italy. Maybe it was the spiritual weight Leo carried. But Attila never returned. He died the next year under mysterious circumstances. Rome was saved, not by soldiers, but by a shepherd. Part 7. Theology and the Power of the Papacy. Pope Leo's meeting with Attila was legendary, but it wasn't his only impact. He believed deeply in the primacy of the Bishop of Rome. In his eyes, the Pope wasn't just a figurehead. He was the successor of St. Peter, and Peter was the rock upon which Christ built his church. Leo's writings emphasize this again and again. He wasn't seeking personal power, but saw the papacy as a divine role, meant to unify and protect the church, especially in dark times. Part 8. Legacy of Pope Leo I. Leo served as Pope for 21 years, from 440 to 461. He strengthened the authority of the church. He defended orthodoxy. He protected Rome. After his death, he was canonized as a saint and later named a doctor of the church. And only two other popes in history have shared the title the Great, Gregory I and John Paul II. That tells you everything you need to know. Part 9. Controversies and criticism. But not all viewed Leo as a savior. Many Eastern bishops felt he pushed Roman authority too far. Some accused him of seeking centralization, undermining local traditions and bishops. His ideas about papal supremacy would later fuel debates that led to the Great Schism between East and West. Still, Leo believed unity required strong leadership. And in a time when emperors failed, someone had to lead. Part 10. Final reflection. So, what do we learn from Pope Leo I? He wasn't a warrior. He didn't build an army. He didn't rule through fear. He ruled through conviction. When the Roman world was burning, he stood. When no one else would face Attila, he rode out. When doctrine was collapsing, he wrote and preached. When people needed hope, he led. This wasn't the story of one pope. This was the story of why the church survived the fall of the Roman Empire. It's the story of how courage can speak louder than cannons, of how truth can silence terror, of how one man, with no sword, no army can change history. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Pope Diaries. If this story inspired you, if it opened your eyes to a forgotten piece of history, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below. And to our loyal subscribers, you are what keeps this journey alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and remember, sometimes the greatest victories come not from war but from words.